would say that you could probably find a few general and summer engineering programs as well. And I would just get the applications out, see who are admitted, and then sort of evaluate which programs will be most helpful. Also, I would say to stay with that engineering theme is like, I'd also look at math courses as well. That would be a big thing.
So just a math one. And I'm thinking, what if you choose one, just go for it with civil or biomed, and if you end up not liking it, then at least you've eliminated that one and maybe you can focus on the other one.
Yeah,
Another
absolutely.
possibility.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, so for someone who's applying to a business major, do grades in physics and chemistry count as much as grades in math? How would you look at that?
I think that it depends probably on like how elite it is. That, you know, if you're applying to Penn Wharton, I'd be like, you probably need every grade possible. But I think that, you know, when I evaluated applications, I did try to at least acknowledge projected program of study. So, you know, if I was reading an applicant that was applying to a business program when I worked at Santa Clara, or if I was reading an applicant that was applying to engineering, I would spend a little more time focused in on those math grades than perhaps I would on how they did in history or something like that. So you do read contextually, although I will say this, if you are applying to an uber elite, highly selective business program, NYU Stern, USC Marshall, Penn Wharton, you're going to need just good grades across the board. There's kind of no getting around it. You can't really have many weaknesses.
Right, because other candidates will have those perfect grades.
Other candidates will have those grades,
Wonderful. Okay, so if I need financial aid, can I not or should I not apply to the UCs since they don't offer financial aid to international students?
Yeah, I think that I'm always a fan. I mean, trying to get some fee waivers, but I'm a fan of applying and then seeing kind of what happens there. But if you're like, I'm really not certain, if you're interested in the UCs, but you're like, I'm not going to be able to afford it, I would go back to that junior college path, and I would do 2 years at a junior college, which that are super inexpensive, incredibly inexpensive, even for internationals, and then transfer into a UC. That if you're looking at the UCs and saying, I'm not going to get aid and that price tag is too much, then I would avoid sending the applications out. I wouldn't take on the cost of applying.
Awesome, that's good advice. And you've mentioned a couple of other great schools in California, so if it's about California, there are other options that might have that financial aid. Awesome. Right. Okay, let me see. So do my acceptances, so this is from Felipe, do my acceptances at Brazilian universities have any weight in the application process to US universities?
No, I don't think that's anything that would play a role or be acknowledged by an admissions officer, no.
Okay, that's helpful. I am currently in the first year of high school in Brazil. If I did my last year of high school in the US, would that increase my chances of acceptance at a US university? That's a good question.
I don't think it would increase things, no. I mean, it would make for some great and very interesting essays as you sort of compare and contrast. And it's just maybe the students go to graded or one of the international schools there, I don't know, but I don't think that, I think it makes for interesting essays. I don't think it impacts so much the read.
What we usually would say is like, consider how successful you will be at that school. Like sometimes we have students who maybe want to come from a Brazilian school to a boarding school, and it's a top boarding school, but you go from the top tier at your high school to the bottom, at the school. So that could be a worthwhile reflection as well. Right.
I probably would need more context on that question, I think, but a good question.
Wonderful. Okay, Mia is asking, how important is the awards section in the Common App, and what do you expect to see there from international students? That's an awesome question.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in Silicon Valley where a lot of kids do competitions, math competitions, they have awards, things like that. When I read, I would kind of glance over at the awards section to see if there's anything that really jumped out that I needed to be aware of, like a student that had won a famous math competition or a debate competition or things like that. That's what I looked for at Stanford. Sometimes you're looking at more internal awards from the school, like, Love of Learning Awards or things like that to get a feel for just the student's commitment to education. But that's about what it is. It's not a section that's robust in the sense that, there are kids that I admitted that had very little there, if anything at all. So it was possible to have that. So you're looking for stuff at the national level, state level, or within the school to get context there.
Awesome. Great advice there. So we have another question here on scholarships. Again, a very open-ended question. What type of scholarships can internationals apply to? So if you want to just quickly go into maybe need-based, merit-based, that would be helpful.
Well, yeah, and again, I'm going to go back to like kind of a case-by-case basis. And when you go to any school's website, they're going to be very clear on sort of scholarshiping and what they're offering on the international side. There could be need-based scholarship, which is like, here's my financial need, and then, do you have money to meet that need? Merit-based would just be like, merit-based scholarships are sort of like your grades are so good that, you'll be contributing to the community accordingly. So like USC runs a pretty robust merit-based program. And then there's finally external scholarships, which is like, foundations or organizations like Procter and Gamble might have a scholarship for, children whose parents work at Procter or things like that. So that would be external, not connected to the university. My general take for most students interested in financial aid is first recognize that while admissions and financial aid are all part of enrollment management, I, as an admissions officer, made my admissions decision. Financial aid stuff was held by other, was directed by other people. We were in the same building. Often they were above me, one floor, but the financial aid offices makes the call on those things. And I feel like schools' websites are pretty transparent regarding how they handle awards and financial aid deadlines and scholarship deadlines.
Yeah, absolutely. And to explain what kind of scholarships are available and everything else. And I'm just going to ask our audience. So I think we'll probably go for like another 10 minutes or so. We still have lots of questions here. So if you guys can continue to upvote once again, those questions that you definitely want to hear Martin's answer to, that will be very helpful to help us prioritize. So take a look over those. We have a question here from Olivia. She says, in Brazil, it's very common for students to work while they're studying. So like while they're doing their university studies. Does Stanford or do US universities have that kind of opportunity for students to work? Are there any sort of partnerships with industry where students can go directly from school into work? How do you see that?
Yeah, good to know. Great information, Olivia. There are universities in the United States that have really robust co-op programs where you literally are combining study with work. Perhaps Northeastern in Boston is your strongest co-op school, where kids have entire semesters where Northeastern lines them up with jobs and work to learn about different career paths. So yeah, there are some great co-op schools. Stanford was not a co-op school, but Stanford had a really, really, really good career center, where as a student, you go to that career center to then line up internships or positions at companies in Silicon Valley. So that there are co-op schools where that is all part of your curriculum, where you've got schools like Stanford, where you've got this great career center that's going to help you find those opportunities. And I do want to take a moment to talk about career centers. It is the most overlooked part of the college research process. But I just think that the variance in the quality of career centers at different universities is massive. So I can honestly say the first time I walked into Stanford's Career Center, I almost shed a tear looking at all of the opportunities that these kids were aware of or made aware of, and the number of Career Center people that were there to help Stanford kids get positions both while they were at Stanford or when they graduated. I think that any research you're doing on any school should involve, learning about the Career Center and looking at sort of what help or guidance that you are provided. There used to be awards or rankings of career centers. For a time, Georgia Tech had a really, really widely recognized career center. I think they still do, because they actually have a career center lined up with each kind of college in the university. I'm on the advisory board at University of Chicago. I'm super impressed with some of the programs they have set up to make sure that from the minute you step on Chicago's campus till you graduate, they're lining you up with internships. They're making sure you're getting you that first job. So that should be part of your research because, I think that's huge, and that could really make the difference to that smooth transition into your career. Then again, also there's co-op programs.
No, that's really good advice to students. And yeah, I think that if you're talking about that in your Why This College essay, that might even make you stand out because maybe a lot of students aren't looking into that sort of thing.
They aren't looking into it. Yeah. If I were visiting a college, I would definitely do the little walk around campus or whatever. I would skip the dorm visit because it's like dorms are all they're all the same. I would go to the career center. I'd be like, okay, who interviews on this campus? What do you do to help me get a job? How do you do things? That's what I would focus on a lot.
Absolutely. That's awesome. That's a really good tip for our students. Okay, so upvoted question here. Do you offer support with the essays and interviews? I'm going to assume that that's a question for Crimson, and I'm going to say yes, that's a big part of the support that we provide for students. Okay, Cesar is asking how to have an early application to Stanford. So maybe talk to us a little bit about how that works at Stanford, early application.
Sure. Stanford, like many schools, has an early application round, meaning those applications are due by October 31st, Halloween here in the United States. And what that means is you've got to be very organized. You've probably got to go into your summer, meaning that sort of June, July, August, prepared to do your essay writing so that in September you're just kind of reviewing and editing and submitting in October. Numerically, you have to be in a place where you don't need any more grades to prove anything, that you've done a great job in high school so far. Now, the different early programs, Stanford offers what's called single choice early action, as does Harvard, Yale, Princeton, and Caltech, which means single choice, you could only apply to them. Early action means if we admit you, you do not have to attend our university. The flip side of that is an early program called early decision, which I always joke is a bit like marriage, meaning you can only apply to us if we admit you, you are promising to attend my school. So schools like Northwestern, Columbia, Dartmouth, they offer early decision options. Statistically speaking, early decisions can help you out a lot more because from an admissions officer's perspective, that's what's called guaranteed yield. And like, I know you're coming. No different than making a reservation at a restaurant. So for whether you're applying single choice early action or early decision, you have to be an organized student if you're going to go this route because things move quickly and you've got to spend that summer getting everything ready. And additionally, numerically, you have to be in a place where like you have nothing left to prove. I've got all my grades in line. Everything is looking great. I don't work for Crimson, but I do know that the Crimson team is more than prepared to not only educate you about these different early programs, but to provide you with up-to-date data on like, okay, here is the statistical bump you'll get by applying early, and they'll help you with strategy, which is, I think, an area that many international students need help with. Like, how do I strategize to improve my odds of admissions to schools?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely a huge part of the conversation. Early, where to apply early, how to choose between different early options. So yes, thank you, Martin, for sharing that as well. Okay, so a couple more we can get through here. Interesting. Am I at a disadvantage if I'm in my second gap year? So meaning a student who's graduated from high school and they have waited 2 years before they've applied to U.S. universities.
You're at a disadvantage if you've just been sitting at home for 2 years playing video games. Then I'd be like, oh my God, the hell, man. But if you've been doing some interesting stuff, maybe traveling the world, maybe you started your own business, maybe you've been working on a children's book. I don't know. If you've been doing something interesting, I'm absolutely fine with it. And I would probably very much welcome that mature perspective on my campus. So no, you're not at a disadvantage unless you spent the last 2 years not doing very much. Then I'd be like, oh, well, that's not good.
No.
Absolutely. Awesome. That's helpful advice. And that goes for whoever only has one gap year as well. You definitely need
exactly.
to make sure you're using that time wisely. Okay. Martin, what do you think the fundamental aspects of a successful personal statement are in terms of content?
Okay. All right. This is definitely Martin Walsh talking. I am not an employee of Crimson, and you'll probably get a bazillion different. It's like everyone's got their favorite way to make lasagna type of thing, or or my wife's Greek, like how to make spinach bowl, but that's like everyone's got their formula. Here's the stuff I think. First, shorter than you think. The common application will give you 650 words. I don't think, or I'm encouraging my students to shoot for 550 because, my God, these application officers, admission officers are getting so many applications. So A, it's shorter than you think. B, remember that the word is personal statement, meaning the story you tell should be something that's kind of unique to you. So when I work with students, I'm always kind of data mining for an experience that they had that really impacted them, or a habit, something they do all the time that really illustrates their values. So I'm always like, we've got to identify a story or a narrative that feels personal, where the readers can relate to. Third, it's not a job interview. Don't look at it like a job interview. It's a lunch table conversation. It's a cup of coffee at your local cafe. It's that type of conversation where the reader's trying to get to know you. Like, what do you value? What would you be like in the classroom? What would you be like in the dorm rooms or things like that? And then finally, don't just tell a story and end it. The story's got to have a point. And we call that the revelation, meaning, okay, here's this habit I have. I bicycle everywhere. But the revelation is I bike because the personal is political. I believe that cars are bad for the environment, therefore I refuse to drive a car. My beliefs have to align with my actions type of thing. So you have to have a point to your story. If not, it's just kind of a story that goes on and on. So those are my tips on what makes for a good personal statement. A really long personal statement that has no point. A really long personal statement that tells me why you want to be a doctor. A really long personal statement that just recites stuff that I know from your activity section is not going to help me get to know you at all. It's just me doing with a student this morning, and I kept on going back to that theme of like, your writing is not personal enough. Every answer you're giving me just feels like you're just reciting your resume over and over again. That's not good. That's not going to work for the personal statement.
That's definitely good advice. Yeah, I think. Well, even American students, but certainly Latin American students rarely have written an essay of this type before. So definitely can be a challenge. Okay, so what would you say are the best universities in California, apart from Stanford, with need-based financial aid for international students?
Ooh, I'd probably have to get online and do a bit of research on that. I don't know what USC's policies are. I do know that USC tends to be pretty good with financial aid, but I'd have to double check their international.
They have awesome merit. They have really good merit aid, but unfortunately no need based for international. For national students, they do though. So if you're USC. Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
the Claremonts come to mind.
The Claremonts. Oh, I'm flying down there tomorrow. I have a meeting tomorrow at Harvey Mudd. So the Claremont Consortium could be really good. You've got a group of schools there that might be really good. I just would probably have to kind of look and Google that and do my research on my own.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm not coming up with any others as well, but Crimson can definitely support you guys.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay, so personal statement we answered here already. Okay, Olivia again, she would like to know, do internships count as part of the process? So high school internships as extracurricular activities. She's a Brazilian student who does a computer engineering internship.
Olivia, you're a go-getter. Yeah, absolutely. That just shows intellectual vitality. That shows curiosity. There'll be plenty of places for you to talk about that internship in both the activity section or in a supplement essay question, perhaps with your personal statement if you have a story wrapped around it. But yeah, absolutely would count and be something that they would look at.
Amazing. Okay, so I think we have time for one more here, which is a great question, which is how does a university evaluate if a student is a good fit for that specific university as part of their process? So maybe you can tell us what fit is and then how a university would evaluate that in the application process.
Yeah, I think that fit goes to, it could be program of study. It's like, hey, I'm working at Caltech. We're all about engineering. This kid's about engineering. So that could make you a good fit. Or it could be a school like Stanford, which is like, wow, we offer a pretty robust set of things at our school. We're not really just about academics. We're also about research. We put aside $5 million to fund freshman research. We're also about athletics. We're looking for kids that are going to cheer our teams on or participate. So it can really vary by college what constitutes a good fit. Now, how you get a feel for what constitutes a good fit, in my opinion, is by looking closely at the supplement questions, the questions that the university themselves have designed and attached to their application. So like Stanford has questions that are like the intellectual vitality question, what is an idea or an experience that sort of has led you to kind of question and ponder? Because that's what Stanford's looking to admit, those kids that question, that think entrepreneurially, that sort of are trying to do that. Look at those supplement questions. Those will often give you a clue. I'll say this, if you're working on a university supplement questions and you find them easy, dare I say even fun, I'd probably be like, yes, it's probably a good fit for you. You know, if you're working on some school supplement questions, and you're like, I don't get it. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this question. This question doesn't seem good to me or applicable to me.
You Chicago.
It might be a sign.
That's
Yeah,
what I
it might be a
always
bad
say.
fit, right? They've got those quirky questions because Chicago's they love those kids that aren't afraid of an intellectual challenge. They've got that curriculum, etc. I'm seeing more and more campuses pop in with questions that are a bit more political in nature, and I think that tells you, like, look, we've got a vibrant campus environment where there's going to be lots of debate. Are you prepared for that type of debate? So you've got that type of stuff. So the supplement questions will often tell you about fit and what they're looking for regarding fit.
Sorry, just skipped ahead. That's super valuable. That's really helpful. Martin, if you have time for one quick more question, and then I'm also going to launch the poll for those of you who'd like to engage with Crimson further. But I think this one is helpful. It wasn't the most upvoted, but what do you think about students submitting SAT and ACT